Today I have a 2018 Lexus RX 350. This is a loaner vehicle while my GX 460 is at the dealer getting its airbags replaced under the warranty recall. So what do I do when I have a loaner vehicle? I review it. And here we are, RX 350, all-wheel drive. This is a 2018. It's an interesting specification. On the inside we have this light colored tan leather with what looks like a bamboo-like wood. Light and airy inside. Get some California surfer vibes. It's been a while since I've been in an RX. This is kind of the legendary go-to SUV for reliability, luxury, comfort, and bad infotainment. Plenty of room in the back seat. This is not the new L version with extended wheelbase and third row, something to note. You can program this liftgate to stop at different heights depending on your garage. This is programmed to be a little bit low for my head height. You have a surprisingly high loading floor for the rear trunk area, but there's a decent amount of space back here, and with the seats folded down, you've got quite a bit of cargo. Definitely a polarizing looking vehicle. Personally, I kind of like the new looks, but as many reviewers have already said, it doesn't quite match the performance and driving dynamics of the RX. Let's take this thing for a drive. So it's the 3.5 liter V6, just shy of 300 horsepower, made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. While we are stationary, you have some nice features. So you have a heated steering wheel, heated and cooled seats. On first impressions, I'm just seeing a lot of buttons, and when you're not quite familiar with a vehicle yet, it can be a little bit ergonomically challenging. Everything is kind of small, it's dark, the text isn't very large, but I think once you get used to driving this and you become comfortable with everything, where everything is, the learning curve isn't so steep. We have a decent reverse camera. For some reason, the screen goes very dark when I put it in reverse. I'm not really sure why. Somewhat good visibility. The rear C-pillar has a pretty large blind spot in it. Luckily, you have blind spot monitoring and a reverse camera if you can see it during the daytime. This mouse pad, or this mouse joystick, is probably the best iteration of this control unit that Lexus has. I know for a while they were using the touchpad, and that was completely useless. This is at least somewhat useful. There's some really deep menus in this RX, as any Lexus. You can really just get lost in these, and it takes a little bit of skill to get used to this joystick, but it actually works pretty well. It definitely needs an update, but we're not going to go on about that. Everyone knows what a dated, just a dated infotainment Lexus has these days. Again, no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. Kind of a shame that a luxury vehicle in 2018 still doesn't have those, I would say, almost necessary tech features. Hopefully we can look for something soon. Radar guided cruise control, lane keep assist. Okay, let's go for a drive. Let's see how it does in the snow here too, might as well. We are on the standard all seasons. Get a little bit of slide from the rear end there, with traction control lights flickering. Not a ton of grip from these tires. Luckily, you do have a decent amount of ground clearance, this being a crossover SUV. The RX is very quiet, save for something that's rattling in the door over there. The engine's really subdued. Not a lot of noise or cabin intrusion over bumps. You do hear the drivetrain hunting quite a bit. This transmission, this 8-speed, seems to be all over the place today. It does what you need it to do. It gets the job done. But it makes a little bit of noise doing it. And I anticipate that that's just the torque converter and not a very torquey V6 trying to move this thing around, and it needs to get some revs out to make some power. Let's throw it into sport mode for what it's worth and take it on a little bit of an entrance ramp here. You can hear that V6 sing. It's a pretty decent amount of power. You get a significant shove past about 4,500 RPM. You feel it just kick in a little bit more. It's an adequate amount of power. It's a little bit abrupt at higher RPMs. Ride quality is pretty good, especially considering these are pretty big wheels on low profile tires. Brake pedal feels nice and firm at the top of the pedal. We've got a bumpy road up here coming up, and we'll get a pretty good idea of what ride quality and cabin intrusion is like. Let's talk about the sound system. This is the 9-speaker sound system. Nothing fancy, nothing upgraded, not the Mark Levinson, not the upgraded 12-speaker unit. It's okay. It's not awesome. I would definitely want an upgraded sound system if I were going to get a Lexus. The Mark Levinson units are absolutely phenomenal, and this just falls a little bit short. Really bumpy road. Nice and quiet, nice and comfortable over some pretty harsh pavement. Decent handling from this RX too. Seats aren't that supportive around corners, but they are comfortable. Various publications have reported pretty good gas mileage with this RX, and that is one plus, is that it does not require premium fuel. So you can run 87 octane in this and save a little bit of money at the pump that way. Kind of an outlier in the Lexus lineup with that respect. On the highway, the radar guided cruise control and lane keep assist seem to work pretty well. So basically, I can sum this up. You know, this is a nice daily driver. It's comfortable. It handles broken, potholed roads well. It's quiet. It's luxurious. You have pretty decent visibility. Once you get used to the ergonomics and the buttons and where everything's located, then it becomes a pretty decent car to live with. But if technology scares you and you don't really want to be operating what is essentially a computer with an old style joystick, this RX might not be the car for you. It definitely takes a little bit of know-how to just kind of figure out what's going on in the infotainment, because there is a lot of menus, a lot of depth to just everything buried in there. I wish Lexus would simplify the system and maybe take a page from the new RDX, which luckily, though, the climate control and a lot of what you need to do can be controlled alternatively here in the gauges, in the gauge cluster from the steering wheel. You do have volume and tune knobs for your radio stations, which is always helpful. And honestly, once you get this thing all set up, it probably won't be that big of a deal. driving position is nice and comfortable. I do love Lexus's newer steering wheels. They fall to hand really well. They're nicely shaped, they're attractive. They don't have this massive airbag on them. It's a classic 3-spoke design that I think is going to be timeless. And of course, these cars always age well. It's another pretty compelling reason to buy an RX is that chances are it's going to be pretty reliable for you. Yeah, when you're just cruising around town, the engine is pretty much silent. I think maybe it's also getting used to my driving style too, but silky smooth, very clean shifts, nice and quiet, almost off into the distance. Again, not a lot of steering feel or anything, but it is direct. You definitely feel like you're in a Lexus. Lexus has kind of this unique smoothness to its steering that carries over in a lot of its vehicles, and that's definitely the case here. Alright guys, well, that sums up the RX. I think, let's go park next to this Bentley Bentayga and see what that's all about. Cool. 20,000 miles on this. Still feels great. Need to review one of these.